Hello, and welcome to another critical conversation. For this critical conversation, we're focusing on the impact of COVID 19 on education, specifically looking at people just like you and I and how they have endured during COVID 19 with their kids, their job, their marriage. And today, my co-host is Deanne Myrie. Deanne?
Hello, thank you for having me, Wanda. I am Deanne Myrie, as you said. I am living here in Nashville. I am a principal with Metro Nashville Public Schools. I've been in the education system for 22 years, so I am excited to partner with this interview and to hear more about how COVID has affected some of my faraway colleagues with education.
Thanks, Deanne. And we today are interviewing Dr. O. I'm excited to talk to Dr. O. We have a little history, and I know she's going to be a wealth of information on what's going on in her world. Dr. O, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So hi, everybody. I'm Dr. O, founder and executive director of STEM Early LLC, and I also have a curriculum I created known as the Gospel According to STEM. I have been married for 11 years. I have 4 children, 11, 9, 7, and 5. And so I'm seeped in this COVID-19 education virtual learning space in many ways, not just as a mom and a parent, but also as an educator. I received my doctorate in May. So I'm a COVID doctoral student, and I've been doing professional development for teachers and coaching parents on best practices during this time. So I've been quite busy during this virtual season. So
we want to hear about you. So tell me about your experience from 2020 up until now on the impact of COVID on education in your world.
So in my world, as far as my family world with my children, the impact has been both positive and negative, more so positive than negative. As soon as the pandemic hit and we were told that we would not be going back to school, I immediately went into action because I knew that my children would not necessarily do well at home alone by themselves. So I partnered with a pod family and we decided to create our COVID bubble where she has 3 children, elementary age, I have 4 elementary age. And we decided that we would partner together and be in a bubble together so that our kids could do this virtual space together. So it has been a blessing that they have not had to be home alone by themselves. So that's been a blessing, but it has been very difficult navigating the virtual space with 4 different children at 4 different grade levels with 4 different sets of curriculum. It can be very overwhelming. The emailing that the teachers are doing is super overwhelming. Trying to keep up with 4 curricula is very overwhelming. And even as an educator for over 12 years, I found myself struggling, right? And I also teach a STEM class, but I can't imagine what the teachers who are teaching 5 days a week have to deal with. Now I have to create curriculum for a middle school STEM class, but it's once a week. And so I found myself super overwhelmed trying to generate curriculum that is not the same, because we can't translate what we do in the classroom to on the screen because they're different mediums. So they require different modes of delivery. So I had to deal with that with a class 1 day a week. And then also dealing with 4 students that my 4 children, it was just overwhelming. And so for me, the saving grace was having another mom in the trenches with me that we could do this together. And I would go to her house one day she would come to my house. And even though we had both of us there, we had many coffee conversations about how in the world are we going to make it through this. And every time they said school was going to open back up, we would get all excited, like, okay, so only 1 more month we can do it. And then they were like, yes, so no. And then we get excited again. And then, so no. So it's been a blessing, but it also has been very overwhelming.
So I guess the question for me, because I too am in dealing with the same thing. I have three children at home. I have a senior; she'll be graduating this year and headed to UT Chat. And then I have twins that are 11 that are in the 6th grade. And so I know one of the things that's challenging for me is while their father is also an educator, dad is an educator, and he's in the home. Typically, the education rests a lot of times with mom, right? The kids, even though we're both working from home and I'm working and I'm doing my school thing and I'm working with my teachers, my children find a way to come and find me, whether dad's in the basement or whatever, they're going to come and find me. So I guess my question for you is, how are you balancing the time between the children, or are you just creating this time that you're working with them all together? Are you finding that you're having to, hey, this amount of time I got to work with you solely, because it is a lot to keep up with the assignments and maintain, and continue to push them along, and help them to find their own independence?
So I lead with grace. So I have to give myself grace, because I have this idea, and as educators, we're like, this is the lesson plan. This is the lesson plan for the month. This is what we're going to do. We're going to follow this structure. We're going to get it done. And it just doesn't work that way. And I have to remind myself that we're in a global pandemic and this is not normal. And so sometimes I come up with this schedule, like I'm going to work with you this amount and you this amount. And then it doesn't work because something happens and then this happens and that happens. So I'm trying currently to take it one day at a time. And I have to give myself grace, because my oldest son, who is 11, he can jump on the screen by himself. He can log in, he can do his assignments, he can do all of that, right? But then my youngest daughter, she needs help. And then I turn around and she has 11 missing assignments. And I'm like, how does she have 11 missing assignments? And you're supposed to be Dr. Mom, the premier educator, and you can't even get your 2nd grader to turn in her work. You know what I mean? And so I can beat myself up about it, but I have to give myself grace. And I feel bad that my 11-year-old is pretty much navigating this virtual space all by himself because he can. And then I spend a lot of time with my daughter and my 2nd son, who need more assistance because they're more prone to wander. And like I have to sit there while I'm working to make sure they're not jumping on YouTube. And then I block YouTube, and they're hackers, so they find a way to unblock it. And so I just feel like you have to give yourself grace, because these times are not normal, and try it. And if it works, cool. And if it doesn't, don't beat yourself up, try something else. I know for me, we look forward to Fridays. On Fridays, they can take class wherever they want. And they look forward to that. So they can sit on the couch and so I try to do special things like that for them, because I just feel like we have to give ourselves as moms, especially educator moms, because that's like a whole nother level. Like, because we're like, I operate with grace. You have to, and recognize that this is not normal, because ultimately the purpose of education is about producing autonomous humans that are full of civility, right? So I got to focus more on that instead of putting the pressure on them to produce academic outcomes during this unprecedented time. And if they give effort and I give effort, and at the end of the day, nobody's killing each other and everybody's happy, whether she has 11 missed assignments or no missing assignments, it was a good day. And that's really the mantra I'm trying to operate, because this is not normal. And we can't just take what we did in the classroom and throw it on the screen and throw it in this at-home virtual teacher mommy space and expect to get the same results. This takes a steep learning curve, and it's a lot of grace. So I say, try something. And if it works, try it again. And if it doesn't, try something else.
Yeah, so let's bring that back around to the pandemic and how it has impacted education. So do you think those who don't look at it that way are being forced to look at it that way? How is this part of that impact?
Again, COVID-19 and this pandemic has pretty much exposed some of the weaknesses inherent in education. And we know that in the education system, every system has its own flaws. But I think the pandemic has exposed the flaws within the system. And so now we're forced to see, we have this, what do you call it? We have this packaged exam oriented process that students need to go through to matriculate through our, universities and matriculate through our schools. But with the pandemic, all of that is like suddenly a standardized test doesn't matter. Suddenly these grades don't matter. And the inequities that were exposed even more between the haves and the have-nots, whereas in public education, we feel like it's free and it's public and it's for everyone. And everyone has equal access and equal protection for education under the law. And the pandemic has exposed what those of us who are entrenched in it already knew, that it is not equitable, that there's not access for everyone. And so we've had to, in education, step back and rethink, okay, what is our purpose? What are we really doing here to serve these students, to provide for these students? So I think COVID-19 has definitely exposed some material weaknesses in the education system, but I think that's a blessing, because oftentimes people like to live in their filters, right? So people would rather embrace their filters than their flaws. But if you don't embrace your flaws, then you have no room for improvement, because embracing your flaws gives you access to the level you say you want to live on that your filters are lying and saying you're already living on, right? And so the filter of education pre-COVID was, we are providing equal access to high quality education for all students. Now, those in education, we know that's not the truth, but those that were outside, like I've had knockdown, drag out arguments with people who feel like if you live in this neighborhood that's under this tax bracket, and you live in this neighborhood, which is a whole different tax bracket, that if you went to a public school, it's the exact same thing. What do you mean, doctor? Oh, it's the same thing. Like, so what if there's different, and then the knockdown, drag out conversations about rezoning and all that stuff. From the inside, we were trying to fight, like, listen, we need y'all help. But from the outside, they were like, y'all got it. But when everything was shut down and everyone was forced to go home and forced to look and face the ugly truth that there is systemic racism in the system, there are flaws in the system, everybody's forced to see it now. So now it's like, oh, snap, you have these parents that are like, we got to do something about this. Like, this is not cool. So I think it has exposed the flaws, but I think that's great, because we've been living in this IG filter in education. Like, everything is awesome, everything is cool, versus, you know what? We got some flaws. And if we really want to be this educational system that we portray that we are to the world, then we got to embrace these flaws, and we got to work together as a community to fix the flaws, if that makes sense.
How much structure are you giving to your children? I'm thinking about, like, are you still committing them to bath times, bedtimes? Are you giving them a designated workspace? I heard that you said on Fridays that you're allowing them a little liberty and freedom. Okay, maybe you can do the couch thing, and I won't even speak on how all of those things have fallen by the wayside in my house. Like, we tore up our house to make desks and everything, drilled holes in the walls, and now I don't care. You can sit on the porch, just get on the class, right? So how much are you giving to structure and time, all those mommy things, bath time, bedtime, work time, homework time? What is your structure looking like in the home?
So I'm a classic non-structured person anyway. So I'm very free with that, but I do have a morning routine that we've always had, even pre-COVID, where it's a chart on the wall, and they have to do 1 through 10. The first thing is pray, and then they have to do their Bible reading. So there is a 1 through 10. So that has not changed. So when they wake up in the morning, they know they have to do 1 through 10 before they get on their virtual spaces, which has really helped. So continuing that routine and not letting that fall by the wayside is just helpful. And we do that every day, even on Sunday before they go to their, Sunday school and church school classes. They know when I wake up, we do 1 through 10. And that has really helped my mornings because I am a morning person. And I think in addition to keeping that routine, it's been important for me as a mom to keep my routine. So I get up in the morning and I do my devotion every morning. Because I have to, because I'm a better person if I spend time with the Lord before I spend time with you. Ask my husband, he'll tell you. And on the days when I miss it, something's not right. And he'll actually come out and be like, okay, you need to go do 30 minutes with Jesus because you're not here right now. So I think that routine has been helpful, me maintaining that and not letting that go by the wayside. Also making sure my kids get dressed. They get dressed every day because there's something about getting dressed and being on the class that makes them a little bit more attentive. We also have no screens during lunch. When it's lunchtime, every screen is off. Like there's no screen because there's a screen overload. So we make sure that they're outside on the trampoline, jumping, running out in the yard or in the basement in the play area playing. That routine has not changed. And then I also make sure that after school is over, there is a good 2 to 3 hours of non-screen time. And I think as far as routines go, that has been one of my biggest things that I've stuck to. Because I think they're getting the screen overload and it is in fact rewiring their brain. And it's crazy the dichotomy that occurs when I enforce the rule of no screens and I don't. And when I don't, and I just feeling lazy and they have school all day and then they're on their screens all day. And then when it's time to go to bed, they're like hellions. They're mean to each other. They're not nice. And then they're running all over the place because they haven't been able to get out any of that energy. And it's just super hard to put them down. But when I enforce that whole, okay, there's no screens during lunch. And then we got to have a good 2 to 3 hours before you can come back in and play on the Xbox or, do your little YouTube thing before bedtime. And that has really helped. I'm still struggling with the bedtime routine. Like I have a countdown to bedtime, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is similar to the one I've done in the morning routine, but that hasn't really set in because of our lifestyle as a family. We have our cousins living with us. And so we're just very social. And we also enjoy spending time with one another, spending time with our kids. And so we don't necessarily enforce the bedtime routine as much as we should. But we definitely do the screen thing. And that routine has been helpful. And that is a routine that I encourage all of my parents that I work with to do, because again, they can't be on virtual school all day and then be on the screen all day because, movement is a big part of learning and acquisition and the attainment of knowledge.
Hey, Dr. O, so it sounds like that leads into our final question. What from 2020 have you learned and are you taking it into 2021? What are you taking into 2021?
That's a really good question. I think my biggest thing is that this new paradigm that we're moving into in the world of education is going to take an ideological shift. And so it's going to be something that we've never seen before. So I cannot look nostalgically at the past and try to figure out how to cultivate a future in education. And I think that's why I've said, give myself a lot of grace. My thing is in 2021, as an educator, as a mom educator and teacher, I need to give myself the freedom to be inventive and creative. And so try new things. We're always looking to try new things. We have to get away from the globalization of a fixed formulaic view of trying to do education, because it's what takes us out of this weird space that we're in education, trying to figure it out. What's going to take us out of that space is something that we haven't seen before. And that's not to say that traditional education, the traditional classroom, the way we're doing the Zoom is going to be obsolete. It's like, I guess a good example would be like the mail. right? Because we have the internet, because we have email, we still have the post office. The post office still has its place. But the email is something that was brand new. Nobody, like when the internet came out, it was like, whoa, this is so different. And it has radically transformed the way we communicate with one another. With email and internet and now social media, it was something different. It was something we had not seen before as far as corresponding. And so we couldn't necessarily figure out how to revamp the US post system to get to email. Because no matter how you tried to reimagine, reinvent, re-engineer the US postal system, you were not going to get the internet. You were not going to get email. And I think that's what's happening right now, is that there's a whole bunch of people like yourselves that are in the trenches that are like, what is it? And we're trying new things and we're having these conversations because ideas and thoughts are born from conversations, right? And so the next wave, this new paradigm of education is going to be like going from the post office to email. And so we don't know what it looks like. So we have to continue to try new things. We can't be nostalgic. We can't romanticize the past. And we also can't take the classroom and try to throw it on the screen, because we know talking heads don't necessarily engage kids in the same way. I don't know what it's going to be. We might be holograms in people's living room. I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. But whatever it's going to be, it's going to it's going to reimagine how we and reinvent how we do education. And it's going to be great. It's going to be great because, again, every paradigm shift comes on the heels of a crisis. So you don't get, everybody's been talking about, we need to change in education since Race to the Top, right? Since No Child Left Behind. We've all been talking about, we need something new, but there was not enough of earthquake to incite a global need for a change. Well, we got it. It's almost like God is like, listen, y'all educators been praying for something new. Now I just gift wrapped you this pandemic. Now it's shut down, and now you have the ability and the freedom. And I think that's my take into 21. We as educators have the freedom to be inventive and creative in how we seek to create these autonomous human beings full of civility so that our society and our democracy can persist, so that our kids can say, oh my gosh, we're so proud to have been educated in the US. We're proud to be US citizens, and more than US citizens, we're just proud to be a part of the human race with that respect and with that, you know what I mean? And so I think that's kind of what I'm taking in. Like, it's coming. I don't know what it looks like, but you know what? If you get ready, you don't have to prepare to be ready. So I'm just constantly looking for it, knowing that it is going to happen. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm not going to sit here and figure out how to reimagine the classroom of the past, because I'm not saying that that's a dinosaur, and I'm not saying that that's not going to have its place, because listen, Christmas just ended. The post office has its place. Okay, I went to mail packages 2 days before Christmas, and the line was out the door. So, there's nothing wrong with the post office. Email doesn't make the post office bad. Email doesn't make the post office obsolete. Email is just a different form of communicating and disseminating information.
Awesome, Dr. O. And see, I knew that with you, the conversation could go so many different directions. I know, but I love it, because I knew you're going to throw a whole lot of insight in there, a whole lot of grace in there, and laughter. So I thank you so much for your time today. Thank you, Deanne, for being here and hosting. I'll see you again shortly on another interview. But I also want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us for these critical conversations. Just because you're not on the recording doesn't mean that we don't want to hear from you. So please leave your comments on this video below. Let us hear from you and how COVID-19 is impacting your educational journey. Thank you.
Thank you.